I paid $350 for this broken gaming laptop that another shop has already tried to fix, so let's see if we can fix it. Extra screws, that's always encouraging. SSD. A viewer reached out to me recently and said they had a broken gaming laptop. They said that after it got warm, it would stop charging. They took it to a shop. The shop tried to fix it, but unfortunately, they were not successful. The shop said it was a problem with the main board, but we'll find out about that here in a minute. Can't help but notice the shop went ahead and melted this top case right here. So it looks like the shop tried to replace this port, maybe without taking the motherboard out of the computer, which is a pretty dumb thing to do. So I need to get this bottom case off so we can inspect this a little bit closer. This video is sponsored by iFixit, and I will be using their Manta driver kit to remove all the parts on this laptop. I've been using iFixit for well over 5 years now. Even before I had a YouTube channel, I used iFixit because they have some of the best parts around. They also have a website where you can find repair information, including repair guides for lots of devices. And the nice thing about iFixit's tools is they are some of the highest quality precision tools you can get. They also come with a great warranty. So if you wear out your bits or something breaks on your driver, then you can just contact them and they will send you out another one. So we got some ribbon cables that weren't even attached. Okay, wow, so all these components have just kind of floated around here when they replaced this thing. Actually wondering if these connections are even connected at all. You can say they soldered right here, but I don't see any solder on these back connections right here. Well, there's a little bit on that one, but not anywhere else. So I'm definitely gonna have to remove this entire motherboard so I can look at the back side of this board right here and see if these pins are even soldered on at all. But before I do that, let's plug it in and just kind of see what it does, see if we get any voltage down here, and that'll give us a few more clues as to what might be going on here. And we have no lights, no indication of charging, and no power at all. And with the charger plugged in, let's see if we have any voltage on these pins. We got 19.8 and 19.8. So we have 19 volts coming in through the charger into the charge port, and we have power all the way to these pins. So the next thing we need to figure out is if these pins are soldered onto the motherboard correctly. And to do that, I'll need to remove the board from the computer so we can look at the top side of the board. And I mean, let's face it, part of the reason this isn't working is probably just because it doesn't have the perfect amount of thermal paste. And we definitely don't have the perfect amount of thermal paste. It's also pretty dry, so we'll take care of that when we put it back together. And this could be a major problem. This battery connector right here has been desoldered from the board. It's actually loose on here. It's hard to tell right now. When I disconnected the battery, it just pulled right up, but that's because you can see it has been broken before, so we'll also need to be taking a look at that. So these fans have definitely not been cleaned out. There's a bunch of hair there, a bunch of hair there, and they're just dirty on the top side as well. So whoever did this job, even if they did take the motherboard out, they didn't replace any of the thermal paste, that alone can cause it to overheat. So this is not looking very good for whatever repair shop did this job. Okay, and there we go. So here's a close-up of the damage this supposed repair shop did when they were trying to fix this device. This is the condition they left it in when they gave it back to the customer. Any repair shop that does shoddy work like this without even fixing it should not be in business. This is what gives repair shops a bad name. They should have replaced this piece, no charge to the customer, so the customer at least got it back in as good of condition as it was when they dropped it off. And unfortunately, this does not bode well for trying to fix this motherboard. So there is a little bit of good news, and that is it looks like they at least did solder on these pins in the middle here. I'm not sure that they're soldered on in a way that they're actually connected properly, but let's get into the microscope, check these out, and see what other damage is around these components over here. I already see a little blob of solder over here, so that's definitely not good. So there's just so much flux just everywhere on this board. I'm actually just gonna warm this board up a little bit and clean that all off first, then we can see what's actually going on here. Okay, now that that's clean, we can actually see what's going on. I don't see anything that's too worrisome here except for this random solder ball right here. We need to get that out of there and get rid of it. That's one of the last things you want on a motherboard is just random solder balls floating around, because if they touch two of the wrong points, then could be in trouble. And that might have, it could have touched this bottom copper down here and this side of this capacitor. I don't think it did, but it definitely could have. So other than that, this bottom side looks like it's probably fine. This diode we might need to check, but other than that, I don't see too much damage down here. This top side though, that's a little bit of a different story. One of the first major things I see is this guy right here. This pad and this pad and this pad and this pad are the 4 pads that this one should be attached to. You can see it's not attached to this one at all, and probably not very well attached to the other one, so we definitely need to fix that. This row of capacitors right here, it actually looks like everything is attached to the pad it needs to be attached to, surprisingly. So I'm not too worried about that. And then these components here, they look fine. So I don't really see anything else that I'm super worried about there. So I'm gonna fix this first. In order to fix this, I'm gonna put some flux on it. That will help the solder flow. Then I will use my hot air station to heat the component and move it back into place while this solder is liquid. Then I will remove the heat and let the solder solidify, and then we should be done. So now this component is soldered on correctly. Also, you probably noticed I did go ahead and run my hot air along these components. It was just super hard for me to look at these when they were all sideways and crazy, and these two look like they were probably even touching. So I wanted to fix that. Obviously that did melt this plastic a little bit, but this part shouldn't matter at all because this part up here is where the cable plugs in. So we should be fine with a little bit of plastic melting on that part. Let's check this fuse real quick and make sure that fuse is good. And it definitely is. So now with that work done, let's plug this back into a charger and see what happens. Chips are getting warm. That's good news. So I think I'm gonna put this back in enough so we can test it, see if that fixed it. Of course, we need to take care of this thermal paste problem. It blows my mind that a place that calls themselves a repair shop would remove a motherboard out of a device and then not put in new thermal paste. But I guess if all the repair shops did what they were supposed to, I wouldn't have as many good videos now, would I? And now the most important part of the whole day, the perfect amount of thermal paste. Oh, and don't worry, I'm cleaning off the heatsink as well. I'm just not gonna show that on camera because let's face it, nobody wants to see that. Now with that done, we can get it put back together the rest of the way, and with the perfect amount of thermal paste, I'm pretty confident this thing's gonna fire right up. Seriously, do the thermal paste last. Also, gotta make sure and clean out the heatsink while I'm at it, just to make sure that this thing is cooling as optimally as possible. And now we're ready for the heatsinks. Now at the beginning of the video, I noticed this connector right down in the front was lifting up. So what I'm gonna do to check and make sure this thing is soldered on correctly still is just check continuity between the pins. So I'm gonna go with this pin and this pin down here. Yep. And this pin and this pin. Good. Same here. Good. So that tells me that the connection between the battery and the board itself is good. Even though this connector is a little questionable, I can come back and tack each side of this down, but I'm gonna leave it as is for now, and let's see if it's gonna start up for us. Oh, what is that? We have a charge light right there? Let's see if it'll turn on. Oh, good news, red light. Anything on the screen? We've got no screen. Whoa, there we go. Oh, this is great news. So we've saved another device. This was actually my first gaming laptop repair that I bought to try and fix. I paid $350 for this, so I think today turned out pretty well. If you like this type of video, you'll probably like the video I made where I fixed my own laptop that my wife's cats peed on. I'll put that video up on your screen now so you can come check that out and see how bad it really was. Be sure to go to ifixit.com if you're looking for parts or tools or even repair guides. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good one.